Hi, this is Logan, Dr. Tom's podcast producer. Sunday Morning Cafe events are like mini retreats, featuring live music, a thoughtful, research-informed talk, guided discussions, and refreshments. If you'd like tickets for the next event or would like to donate to the mission, you'll find all the details in the show notes and at sundaymorningcafe.com.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, how are you? 30 shy 1%.
Hello. Welcome back to Sunday Morning Cafe. I'm Tom Wagner. The article you're about to read was unpacked from archival material that first appeared in a 2024 edition of Sunday Morning Cafe. As you'll read, it chronicles the experiences of two vacations taken 40 years apart. The connective tissue holding those two current river float trips together, it was the experience of awe. The whole reason I'm republishing this favorite old article is because my wife Lisa and my daughter Lizzie and I are leaving on a bike riding vacation tomorrow morning. Rather than writing an article this week, I'll be pedaling the bike paths and rural roads of northern Minnesota. I'm hoping to practice what I preach in this article, the disciplines of beauty and awe. Hey, thanks for reading. So the title for this week's archival article is Awe. Not awe like cute, and not awe like ugly, but the kind of awe that makes you say, whoa. My wife's birthday and Mother's Day live just a stone's throw apart on the family calendar. This year, I decided to pay attention to what happiness research has to say about gift giving. Rather than having her unwrap more stuff that she'll probably return anyway, I gave her, and by association me, an experience. As you may know, we live in St. Louis, Missouri. Planning a drivable summer vacation on a budget normally means heading north to humidity-free Michigan for sandy beaches and cherry pie. With only 3.5 days to spend, I shortened my search to more nearby zip codes. We ended up selecting a float trip on Missouri's spring-fed Current River. That's just about 3 hours away. For me, this represented a return to the place where many decades ago, I experienced something very close to what Professor Dasher Keltner, the researcher, refers to as awe. My childhood trip to that river occurred in the late summer. With little rain that time of year, it's mostly just ice-cold springs that feed that river. Going to that same place with Lisa in mid-May, the river hid itself under a layer of brown makeup. Just 1 week earlier, torrential spring rains swole that river's muscles. It burst its banks, pulled up trees, it gorged itself on tons of riverbank mud. By the time we got there, it had settled down. On the plus side, all that rain made the current stronger. Paddling was a breeze. On the minus side, those normally crystal clear waters bore a strange resemblance to a McDonald's chocolate milkshake. But that's not how it was back in July of 1973. Back then, I'm remembering how somehow our 2 adult chaperones managed to pry 6 school-aged boys from their tents pretty close to sunup. After unloading the outfitter's bus and boat trailer, we launched ourselves into a quiet, pristine river. Right away, we noticed the way that the cold spring-fed water interacted with the warm summer's air. It was as if nature had borrowed one of those rock concert dry ice machines. A humid smoke coiled over the surface that we plowed with the bows of our boats. I'm remembering how the morning sun would occasionally peek over one of the limestone cliffs that bound the river. The effect was breathtaking. Bright columns of light cutting through the smoke gaps. Those beams opened up an underwater landscape fit for a mermaid. In the shallows, suckerfish and trout moved in and out of the shadows underneath our boats. Here's the slice out of that trip that Dr. Keltner, the professor who studies awe that I mentioned, he'd want to study what I'm going to tell you right now and take it to his lab and chop it up and examine it. My best pal, Dan Gerio, and I paddled within spitting distance of a 50-foot high limestone cliff. Just then, a burst of light sliced through the water down into the depths. That beam illuminated maybe 30 more underwater feet of that cliff's base until the dark of the depths swallowed it. Instantly, a leviathan made up of fear and goodness surged up from some until now unknown place inside of me. It swallowed me whole. Now, I am, and always have been, annoyingly loquacious. By nature, I am. Yet, I couldn't find any words at all for this, not even a desire for words. In that holy silence, my eyes teared up. If you could find a word to go with that internal, external experience, it'd have to be deeper than holy shit. Maybe whoa, with about 1,000 exclamation points after it. I remember it now with a kind of pleasant ache, like I wish I could get back to that experience. In his 2023 book, coincidentally titled Awe, Dr. Dasher Keltner writes, and I'll quote him, 20 years into teaching happiness, I found the answer. Find awe, end quote. Well, I wish it were that simple. As far as I can tell, Keltner's methodological approach was and continues to be meticulous. His book was well worth my $15. However, while I was reading it, I kept thinking of the works of a whole bunch of adjacent authors who've written about awe over the centuries. I thought of William James in the early 20th century. He studied religious experiences. Abraham Maslow in the mid-20th century researched the thing he called peak experiences. Martin Buber did something similar in his study of I-thou experiences. Teresa of Avila in the 16th century wrote about what theologians describe as mystical experiences. These authors, spread out across the centuries, agreed with one another on several substantial points. One of those being, you cannot schedule an experience of awe. You can't produce it on your own. To be fair, Keltner doesn't disagree with that point. He sees it the same way. So if you can't schedule that experience, what can you do? Well, you can do what Lisa and I did on our trip to the Current River a couple of years ago. As we rounded bends in the river, explored water caves, greeted the dawn, and said goodbye to the setting sun, we did our beauty checks. This methodology was discovered in my own resilience happiness research. It involves two steps. First, there's the intentional attention that leads to noticing of beauty in your surroundings. Next step, you just point it out to your partner or pals, which gives way to a quiet moment where you simply stop, drop, and savor, making it a point to feel the beauty, to experience the beauty within your own body. Now, there is no formula for scheduling an experience of awe. To put it into a religious frame, C.S. Lewis once said, and I quote him, God is not tamed like that. What you can schedule at any given time is the rigorous practice of the sacred art of beauty. If you regularly practice your beauty checks and your stop, drop, and savor methodology, you will develop your innate capacity for wonder. In exercising wonder more and more frequently, you will provide a container for the blessing, the grace of awe to land at the time and place of her choosing. So, now I have some questions for reflection or discussion. The blog article companion that's published on the same day that this podcast is published has these in writing if you'd prefer not to be writing these down. But if you stay on this podcast, I'm going to proceed with the question. So here's the first one. Recall several times when you've had an embodied experience of beauty. Write or tell that story with as much internal and external detail as possible. Second question. Do you have a regular discipline of beauty checks? For example, do you have an outdoor spot for meditation where the same tree's unfolding personality over the seasons intrigues and delights you? Where do you go to see the sunrise? Where do you go to see a sunset? Third question. A couple of years ago, I watched a woman get horrible news on her phone at the airport while in line at the TSA. As she wept and wailed, her toddler boy tugged and cried. She took time out from her call to jerk him by the arm and scream at him. As you might imagine, that just caused him to cry harder. His mom then went back to her phone, weeping again. It was so painfully horrible. But next came the beauty. A woman stepped out of line and helped by lifting this woman's luggage onto the conveyor, and then that same woman just did her best to soothe both the mom and the boy. So here's the question. Have you ever encountered this kind of beauty in a grocery store, in an airport, or a community center? All right, next question. Does it occur to you to do your beauty checks by savoring a parent or grandparent delighting in a child? Similarly, do you stop, drop, and savor when you observe beauty manifested in kindness or generosity? And here's the final question. Have you experienced awe before? Write or tell the story. All right, thanks for listening.
Dr. Tom's producer, Logan, here again with a quick note. If you'd like tickets for the next Sunday Morning Cafe event, or would like to donate to support the mission, you'll find all the details in the show notes and at sundaymorningcafe.com.